Hello, everyone, and welcome to the version 14 preview. Today I'm going to go through all of the different commands that have been added to Envisioneer for the version 14 release. Following the presentation, each and every one of you will get an email that will lead you to a website so you can see all the various features. And in that email, there'll also be a link so you can go up to our YouTube page and watch this broadcast as well again if you want to see a feature and watch it all over again. So let's get started and look at some of the great new features that are going to be in version 14. I'm going to go into one of the different rooms of this model that we're going to be using for all of the different features, and I'm going to go into a bedroom layout. What we found is a lot of people asked, what if I have something in one model that I want to use again in another model? How can I transfer the information from one model and copy it into another? Well, the answer previously was, sorry, you can't. You could block it out and bring it in as one block, but they would be forever then bound together as a block. And you still wanted to be able to bring them into a model, but quantify them or move them around. You just wanted to bring them in. So today I'm going to show you a new feature of version 14. I'm going to select all of these various elements of this bedroom layout, and then I'm going to right click, and you'll see that there's an option to cut or copy. So I could cut it out of this model and paste it in another part of the same model or copy it. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go further than just putting it in the message here. I'm going to go up to the window here and go to an entirely different model. So I'm going to come in here to this new model, and in here I'm going to go up to edit and I'm going to choose paste. So paste will remember the last thing that I had chosen, and then it wants me to paste it in. So I'm just going to bring in that bedroom layout that you can see on the screen here and put it into my new model. And I'm just going to turn off collision here because it's going to try to collide there with everything else. So I'm just going to take that then and move those pieces. So when I pasted it in, I had collision still on. So I'm just going to take them and move them now into the new spot where I want them. So I cut from one model and I pasted into another. So if I come into this new model and look in 3D, there's those same elements in an entirely different design that I cut from one and used in another. So that's great for things like furniture layouts or even an entire garage or pergola or something that you want to use from one model and put it into an entirely different one. And they're not blocked together. They're individual elements, so I can move them around in this space again. This is a huge feature that many people have been asking for, just to be able to cut and copy and put them in. Use it in your models for entire room layouts, entire buildings if you need to as well. Quite excited about that great new feature. I'm going to go back to our original model. I'm going to go into a kitchen view here. So I'm going to go into our kitchen. And with this kitchen layout, I want to be able to use this island layout again in a new model. So I'm going to select the cabinets. I'm going to say select all similar, all the ones that were used here. Hold down shift. And there's also some columns in here, some chairs that I want to bring forward with that. Another column over here, maybe even the pendant lights, just some various elements that I want to keep and group together. So when we right clicked before, we use the option to copy. What we're going to use now is add group. So what add group allows me to do is to save these as a group that I can use over and over again. I don't have to remind myself that it was in this particular model. It'll be saved with my catalog. So I'm going to call this one Islands Layout. And you can see underneath, it's going to give me all the different elements that were saved together. So it's not just the cabinets, but those stools, the cage pendants, the tapered base columns that I used, all are being bound together in a group. So I'm going to click OK. And then those elements, if I come up to my insert group command, are now part of that groups that are over here. So you can see I have a pergola that I saved. I have an entire sunroom. So the entire sunroom itself has furniture, a floor, a roof, ceiling, everything there. And now it also has my island layout. I'm just going to put this down into 2D and then just off to one side of my model, grab that island layout and insert it into just a random spot on my model, just over here, maybe on the driveway. What I want to illustrate with that is even though it is a group, when I do insert them, you can see that they're individual elements. So I'm going to bring in a whole group of a sunroom as an example, bring in all of those walls, the roof, the ceiling, the furniture, and they'll be separated. So when I do pull a material list, it knows all the framing elements to that, all of the materials that I'm going to need to order for that. So that's quite a big deal. And it'll allow you to save things like base plus options. So if you have standard models, but you also have options that you want to add on to it, all of those options can now be saved into the catalog as a group. So you could add in your sunroom option. You can add in a deck option. All of those things that you can group together as an option. Great way to have base plus option. That is, I think, the biggest command of version 14. I'm quite excited about it, but there are even greater ones as well that I'll get to right now. I'm going to go into that kitchen layout, and at the end of the kitchen, you can see there's kind of a chair there. I should maybe look here through the family room. This family room layout is actually an extension off of the house, and it doesn't currently have a roof on it. If I go outside into the backyard, you'll be able to see that there's no roof over this section. So I want to be able to pick points to do just that one roof on this area. So I'm going to go back down to a 2D view, and I'm going to zoom in on just that area of my floor plan. So this area right in here that I'll maybe highlight for you needs a roof. So this area in here. So as always, I'm going to use my roof by picking points method. So I'm going to come down to a roof here, select one, and then to start picking points. So as I'm picking the points, what you might have done in the past, and you just picked the point wrong. I got talking to someone, and oops, I didn't mean to pick that. And if you have a tremendously large plan, and you've picked maybe 12 or 14 points, very frustrating to have to start over again. So what we've incorporated into version 14 is if I right-click, I can step back. In earlier versions, you would have had to start all over again. But now with version 14, I can come back and say, I meant to come all the way up to this corner and left click. And then just pick your points for that roof. And I'm just going to pick them quickly here and hit finish. And now I have the roof over that section of the house. And then it's going to function as per normal. So I can, pick on it, look at my properties, change various things about that side of the roof. And it's still a roof. I pick points just like I normally would. But now it'll allow me to step back. So that's a great new feature for version 14. I'm going to go into another part of my model. I'm going to come back out to that backyard and kind of focus in on these windows right here over that little family room area. Envisioneer has always included trim around your openings. So whether it's inside, casing around it, or on the outside, maybe some siding trim around the windows or some stone trim around your windows. And it's always taken that trim and kind of wrapped it around the opening. Now what we've done for version 14, if I look at the properties of this wall and go to the trim tab, I'm going to go to the exterior surface, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and now you'll see we have window head. So we've always had opening where we can case around the entire opening, but now we have window head and door head. And what that means is that a separate piece of trim can be used on top of the openings. So it can be a customized trim. So I'm going to pick on select here, and I'm going to go to my exterior trim and grab a new piece. I'm going to create one here called add element here. I'm just going to call it stone and go to my appearance tab here and make it look like stone. So I'll go down to some concrete maybe, and that's fine. And then under basic tab here, I'm going to say that I want this to be like 6 inches tall. So we've got this new stone, and I click OK. So anytime I have a window along this wall, it's going to put that stone on top. But it can also go further than that and say that on either side of that window opening, extend this new stone header above it out whatever distance. So I'm going to say 6 inches, and then I click OK. So now I've got past the window openings 6 inches, extending out this new stone top. If I go back inside into this family room, you can see that I used that same idea for the inside trim. So I wrapped around the sides of the window with one side of trim, size of trim, but on the header portion of it, I used a larger piece and I extended it over. So now your window doesn't have to have one piece wrapped around, it can have a different header over top, which will give you some great new styles that you can put into your models. Go back out now to the front elevation, our 3D perspective. And I'm just going to zoom in on this garage here. And when I'm looking at the garage, we also have now, if I click on these two doors, given garage doors a new update, looking at their properties, that they can now include a sill. So our regular type of doors could have a sill, but the garage doors never had the ability to have one, and people have requested that. So now I'm just checking that I want to include a sill and click OK. And then it'll have a sill put over top, and I put a window header, a door header above that as well, and that comes in also. So you can see you can have door trim above and also the sills beneath it as well. So a great way to add in those extra little pieces to your model too. I'm going to go to another place of our model for another new feature. I'm going to go up to our ensuite. With cabinets, we've added in a new feature for them to make it quicker for different styles. So I'm going to select this cabinet that's in this ensuite, and I'm going to look at its properties. Under the Details tab, we've always had this toe space option. And the toe space previously allowed you to have nothing, and maybe I'll put this into a little preview here into a rendered outline so we can see the lines here. So I could either say no toe space or indent toe space, give me a space for that, a depth and a height. But now what we've also added is floating. So with floating, it allows me to say how far off the floor do I want to float this cabinet up. So I can put in a distance there. I'm going to put in 5 inches. So this cabinet will float off of the floor 5 inches. So it gives you a quicker way of being able to create that style of cabinet. Before, you would have had to put it to none and diminish the size, that height, to be very small. And then you would have had to elevate that cabinet by whatever distance. So now in here, it allows you to do all of that at once to speed up your work. So when I click OK, the cabinet then lifts off the ground that 5 inches and becomes a floating cabinet style. I'm going to use this same room, but I'm going to put it down into a 2D layout and go to my second floor in my plan view here. Another option that has been popular in our wish list is that when you're inserting an element, whether it be a cabinet or a bathtub or any type of different element, you wanted to have a little bit more control of being able to put them in exactly where you want them to go. So previously, we've always taught that when you're inserting something and you want it to go in precisely and it's a piece of furniture or cabinet, put in dimension lines or use drafting lines, tools, layout, line, and put that line where you want that element to go and you can snap to it. To make that all more efficient, we've added kind of what we call a boundary box around elements now. So I'm just going to grab this standard toilet out of the catalog. And when I bring it in, same as always, it can be placed anywhere. I'm just going to turn collision back on. And it can go wherever you want it to go, as long as it will fit. If I right click now before I insert it, we have the option for enter insertion offset. That enter insertion offset, you might remember we can use it for inserting walls and windows, putting something a set distance away from a corner that we want to insert. For elements like this toilet or a cabinet or a other piece of furniture, this insertion offset dialog box will now pop up. And it wants to know, it's going to build almost like a force field around it. So I can tell it that around this block, I want 10 inches on the one side, I want 18 inches in front of it, 10 inches on the other, and 2 inches at the back. So as I'm inserting it, I always know that I'm going to have these set distances. So something like a toilet, where you know that you're going to need set distances around it as a minimum, you might want to put that in so when it's inserting it, you know it's going to be no less than 10 inches away from a corner and 2 inches off the wall. So we can use that for placement. So now when I click OK, that toilet attaches itself to my cursor, and you can see it's 2 inches off the wall. And if I try to push it close to this wall, it's going to maintain that offset of 10 inches. Or if I try to come close to these cabinets, it's going to maintain that distance of 10 inches. So as I move it around, it'll always remember that offset that I put around it. So this will give you flexibility when you're putting something in to know I need this distance around it and I need to maintain it. And it'll also give you that precision that you need. I know precisely the distance I want to insert this toilet off a wall, and I can put it all in all at the same time. So it's a great way to be more precise when you're inserting elements into your models. I think that's one of my favorite tools just because of the precision that's going to give you when you're inserting elements. I'm going to skip back down to the kitchen. When you're working on a model and you're working with your clients, sometimes they come up to you and have design changes. They look at the kitchen and say, you know, I'm not sure I'm sold on the gray. What would it look like if everything was the wood color? And I want to see that in all of the rooms. So in my vanities, in the various bathrooms and en suites that are part of my model, can I see what that would look like quickly? Before you'd grab the material paintbrush up here and just paint all that's similar and try to get all the different pieces. So what we've incorporated now is the ability to match the appearance of one element so everything else that's similar to it is going to match and have the same type of appearance set to it. So I'm going to come up here to the Edit pull-down menu, and I'm going to choose Select All. Because I'm in a 3D view, Select All is going to select my entire model. You can see upstairs there's the bathtub and that vanity, and everything here on my ground floor is selected. So it's selected my entire model. Now I'm just going to hold down my Shift key and grab the element that I want to make my primary element, this one cabinet. So I want everything that's a cabinet to match that same appearance, to give it that same wood finish. So with all of those selected and that set as my primary object, I right-click and you can see the option there to match appearance. So it goes through the entire model and looks at everything you've inserted and said, oh, well, I've matched that appearance to 16 different objects, 16 different cabinets. In my model will now match that same appearance. And then said, but there's 229 things, windows, doors, walls, fireplaces, that aren't a cabinet, so I filtered those out, and they're not going to match the same appearance because they're not a cabinet. I said, okay, and when I click OK, you can see that all of my cabinets quickly updated to that same style. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's going to allow you to be able to match the appearance very quickly so that people can see design changes. And if I flip back upstairs to that ensuite, you can see because that ensuite was part of that entire model that I selected when I hit select all, that cabinet updated too. So when you're wanting to match the appearance and make sure your whole house has the same finishes, you can quickly take advantage of that match properties tool. I think it's one of my favorites. There's so many in this new version to really do quick design changes on the fly. I'm going to go back into a 2D view and I'm going to look back at my entire model on my ground floor and I'm going to focus in on the garage. So I'm going to select the garage roof. I'm going to right click and I'm going to look at its properties. Part of the properties of our roof command, as you're aware in previous versions, is specify framing. We've had that for many versions now, and in version 13, we introduced gable ladder framing. And when we introduced that, we got some suggestions back of, hey, this would be really helpful if this tool gave me a little bit more control. So we built that into version 14. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to include ladder framing. I'm going to select a member from my catalog. I'll just say a 2x6 for that gable ladder framing. And here's where it gets changed for version 14. Previously, the gable ladder framing, if I can grab a pen tool here, would have grabbed from the edge of the roof back to the structure. So my gable ladder framing would have just spanned here, and that's the only option that you had. What we've incorporated into version 14 is giving you the option. Go back to the structure, so your next rafter back is going to send that gable ladder framing back to it, or you can say, I want to set it back to a fixed distance. And then I'm going to specify what that distance is going to be. So I'm going to say 2 feet. So it's going to send the 2x6s back 2 feet from the edge of the roof with my gable ladder framing. And I'm going to set the usage here, which you should always do for your material reports, just to make sure that it all appears correctly in your report. Always set a usage, always set a phase, so it knows where it's going in your material report. And then at the very end here, as in version 13, you give it the spacing. So what's new is this fixed extension for gable framing. I'll just click OK and OK. And I'm going to turn on the visibility of my roof framing. So if I come down here to roofs and I say turn on that framing, we'll be able to see that gable ladder framing now coming back 2 feet, not just to the wall, but back an entire 2 feet of that set distance that I told it I wanted to go back. So that's a great new feature of version 14, giving you that little bit more precision that you wanted and that you had requested. So I'm happy that our programming staff here at CADsoft were able to do that for you. I'm going to go back in here and turn back off the roof framing. And I'm going to skip back now to the back of this garage where you can see I put in some columns and some members, and we've got a little patio area going back there. And I'm going to go back to the building tab. And under the members command, I'm going to go to insert single timber frame. That's something we had in version 13. But again, with your request, we built more into that command. You said, great command, but can I have something more? So we've added in, if I'm just going to edit this one truss here, 2 new types. We've added in a fink truss, and we've also added in a flat truss. So this flat truss will be great for those girders going through. Think of putting them in for floor joists. If you have engineered floor joists, you can now use this flat truss and, of course, the popular fink truss style. So in version 13, we introduced the first 4 styles, and now we're adding to that in version 14. So just to show you how to use it if you haven't never used the timber framing feature before. And I should point out that this is something in Building Essentials and Construction Suite only. So if you haven't seen it, and it might be because you might be on Pro Architect, this is a feature of Building Essentials and using it in Construction Suite. So I'm just going to click OK. So with the Think Trust, I'm just going to come across and say that I want to start it here and that I'm going over to here. And it says it's going to turn it on for me. Fantastic. And then if I go back out to that backyard view and just kind of walk myself back, you can see the truss being put in. And I put it in a little low there. So I'm just going to elevate that up and say that I want that at 10 feet. And click apply and OK. And there we go. So now you can show those truss profiles coming through. And you can use them in your design. So if you wanted to incorporate it and change that design a little around to do a kind of a design feature, you can use the new profiles, including a flat truss, in your designs in version 14. I'm going to slip inside into this bonus room that we've created above the garage. Something else that we've done in version 14 to make work a little bit easier is the ability to select a floor that you've inserted using our regular floor tool, so the floor tool here, meant for finish floors, and giving you the ability when you right click to convert that to a structural floor. So the structural floor is a container that has the subfloor, the rim joist, the band joist, the floor joist in it, and it can also include the plate around the bottom as well. We can take that regular floor that you drew and now convert it up to be a structural floor. So when I click OK, it now becomes that structural floor instead. So if you're using models that you created in the past and want to create them now as a structural floor, or if you did your presentation drawings to a client and wanted to show them the finished materials, they've signed off on the design, you want to now go ahead with all of your construction documents, you can convert those now to a structural floor and continue on with your design work without having to insert it separately and change them out, delete one, put another in. Now it's one kind of cohesive command allowing you to exchange that out. Flip back down into a 2D view, and I'm going to go into a 2D designer's plan view. So on our roof here, I want to be able to insert a member, an advanced member here, and use that plane of the roof. So up here at the top, we have slope value, as we always have. And again, this is, another feature that's in Building Essentials and Construction Suite. So if you don't and haven't seen this command, it's not that it's new, but we've built more flexibility into it, but it's in Building Essentials and Construction Suite. Select a plane, as we always have. And when I select the plane, and I'll just say I'm going to put this in with the roof, pick this button, say it's on this plane of the roof that I want to insert the member to, and I want to offset it down -4 inches, and I want it to be a 4x4. And I'll insert it from here to here. Finish. If I continue on with my work and do some other things and then realize, oh, I wanted more than just one, if I pop myself back into that advanced members tool, see how it remembered the plane that I had chosen? Previously, that would have been flushed out and you would have had to start again and select that roof surface. But now we retain that for you so that you can use it again and just quickly insert that same member and go from there. So it's a quick way of being able to continue on with your work. So the command itself is not new, but the enhancements we've made to it is going to allow you to be a lot quicker and more productive in your work. Looking back here at the back of our model, I've got a column. And we've made some enhancements to columns as well. I'm going to right click and look at its properties. Under the properties of a column, you've always been able to dictate the height of that column. So you've put it in, you've put in the height. But what we haven't had in the past, what is new for version 14, is this purchase item tab. This purchase item tab has previously only been found in the members dialog box. What the purchase item tab allows you to do is to specify lengths that you can purchase that column in. So this particular 10 by 10 wood post comes in an 8-foot length, it comes in a 10-foot length, and it comes in a 12-foot length. So when I go and insert it and give it a specified height, what it's going to allow you to do is automatically it's going to purchase the right length for you. It's going to come back here, look in the list and say, I'm going to need that 12-foot post. And that SKU number is going to be added into my material report because I had a height of 11 foot 6 and 5/8. It knew that the other two heights were too short, that I need to order the 12-foot height. So not just a generic SKU number that's found under the quantity tab any longer for the columns, but an actual purchased item length that is going to intelligently look at the height of that column and order the correct SKU number for you. You just have to come in and fill out the lengths that that column is available in, and it will do the rest for you. So if I came up to Tools, Analyze, and Generate a Project Estimate, I will find that column in my report. I'll just put it in a quote generator report format here and expand it so you can see it a little bit bigger. I know over the internet there, everything can look kind of small. So if I scroll through my list here, I will see that column appear. So there's the column, 10 by 10 by 12 foot. It automatically knew to order that SKU number, the WP 101012. Ordered 2 of those. It looked through that purchased item. So in previous versions, it would have just ordered it regardless of the height and gave it the generic SKU number that was found under the quantity tab. But now all of the lengths of that column can be found and it will order it automatically for you based on the height. Fantastic way for ordering and making sure they appear correctly in your material list. Lots of features so far. Let's move on and get another great new feature. I'm going to go into the catalog and go into the element manager. As you're aware, you can have thousands of elements in your catalog, whether they be different types of walls, different types of furniture, different parts that you're going to order in a wall or a floor or attached to different items. But as you progress with the software and use it for years, some of those elements might be discontinued. You might not use them any longer in your work. So you want a quick and efficient way of flushing them out of your catalog or replacing them with something that you now use instead. So I'm going to go to the parts catalog here, and under parts, I'll go to thermal and moisture as an example, and use this 6 mil poly vapor barrier as an example. Maybe you're not going to be using that particular poly anymore. Maybe, and I'm just going to right click here and say add an element, you're now just going to be using something that's just called poly vapor or poly barrier. Let's just get rid of that there. And its new SKU number is just going to be poly. So out of all the materials that you're specifying and that you have in your inventory, you no longer use the 6 mil poly. You're now using this poly barrier, and you've added it in, just as I am right now, into your catalog. So how do I find everywhere that I use that 6 mil poly vapor barrier? It could be in countless assemblies that are attached to your walls, maybe your floors, maybe your ceilings. How do I search it out and get rid of it so that I can replace it now with poly? Well, I'm going to right click now on the 6 mil poly vapor barrier, and you'll see the new option to find and replace. Hallelujah. This is a great way of keeping your catalog updated. If you've ever been through that before where you've had to take a product out and search where it all is, it can be quite the process. So now this is a really efficient way of making that happen. So this find and replace dialog box appears. And in this dialog box, it's going to show me everywhere that it's been referenced. So this 6 mil poly vapor barrier is in all of these various assemblies. So if I pick on one of them, I can say replace with, and then pick on this little button and say replace it with the new poly barrier, and then click OK. That will then take it out of this list. It'll be gone. I can also, if I wanted to make a mass change to all of the items in here, all of them are going to be updated to the poly barrier. I could say select all of them at the same time or just a couple of them and use that same replace button. Or if they're all going to be chosen and replaced, choose replace all. And it says all reference to 6 mil vapor barrier are going to be replaced with poly barrier. Are you sure you want to do this? Because I had chosen the poly barrier. It remembered that before. I'm going to say, yes, I absolutely wanted to do that. And it says, okay, that was successful. It's done. So now if I came back to the 6 mil poly vapor barrier and said, find and replace, it'll come up and say, well, there's no references. You've replaced everything. So I don't have to worry about it again. That is a huge time saver for those of you that are using Envisioneer specifically for material reporting. And you have a lot of inventory and it's changing or you've updated things. That is going to be a lifesaver so that you can get everything quickly changed and you don't have to worry about just changing it manually later or as you go along and find one, changing it as you go. Boom, it's done. Move on and go to the next one. I'm going to hit cancel there to restore my catalog back to where it was. And I'm going to switch now to a worksheet. So in my worksheets, I've got this little model done here. And what I also want to place beside it is a part of my model that has framing in it. I want to show the floor joists. And I want to be able to quickly be able to annotate them and tell it what size the floor joists are. So I'm going to come back to my model and zoom out and zoom in on my model. And I'm just going to tell it that I want to put in my floor joist. To do that, I'm going to use that structural floor tool that we talked about earlier, available in Building Essentials and Construction Suite. And I'm going to say structural floor by perimeter. So it's going to look at my entire structure. And I'll use that 2x10 floor system, move it into my model. It'll show me my entire model. I left click and they're placed in. And then I'm going to turn on their visibility by going down to the view filter and going to floors and telling it I want it to show the structural floor framing and click OK. So I can see all of those joists. I want to break them in a couple sections and do some things to them like we've always been able to since we incorporated that new feature. So I'm going to stretch it out of this area here because there's a concrete floor out in that patio area. So I'm just moving them out of the way in different areas I don't want them. I'm going to add in some bearing lines. So I'm going to say from here to here, break the floor, and again, moving a bearing line from here to here. So I've just developed very quickly my floor joist layout plan. I'm going to go back to my sheet. And on my sheet, I'm going to come up here to define a smart view. And in my smart view, I'm going to say display nothing. Under my view filter, say display nothing on anything. There's nothing showing. The only thing I want to show is under floors, the structural floor framing. And then I click OK. And you can see my preview there shows it, but I'm also going to turn it off on my second floor because we did put some into our, let me just, all locations, second floor, display nothing, and unlock there, nothing. Click OK. And I'm just going to zoom in on just this one, slide it over. I don't want that second floor in there. And insert this view right here. So there's my floor joist plan. what I want to do now is to be able to quickly put in a note to say what those floor joists are and where they're spanning from. So I could come up here to our draw pull down menu, go to details, and say member spacing note. New tool for version 14. So with our member spacing note, I tell it where the span starts. So from here to here. And then you can see here I can put in any note. So I don't necessarily have to use this tool for floor joist layouts. If I wanted to say from here to here is wall-to-wall carpeting, or from here to here is hardwood flooring, I could use this same tool. But what we've done is allowed you to come out and pick something like this 2x10, and it comes up and says 2x10 joist at. Already it's giving me that note, and I'll say 16 inches OC, and then below the line, I'm going to say complete with glued and screwed subfloor. So that's all I have to do. Click OK, and it puts the note in for me. So rather than having to create a block to show the arrow is all incorporated. It puts in your note very quickly for you, so you can move along quickly when you're trying to create those working drawings and get things out the door. And again, it's not just for structural notes. I was able to pick that 2x10, and it automatically said, 2x10 joist at for me. But I could just use that tool. Let me go back in again, draw details, member spacing note from here maybe to here, and just say carpet. And click OK, and it says carpet. So I could use that tool very effectively for many different reasons. The big reason is going to show your floor joist spans and being able to pick on those, but use it for anything. Allow you to be efficient in getting all of those out quickly. Move back to model. Again, for those of you that might have joined us late, we are recording today's broadcast. So if you missed some tools that I started out almost 45 minutes ago showing, it will be in a video that we're going to send you later. And there'll be a link on our website so you can watch individual tools. So if you're not as interested in seeing the entire webinar again, but just want to focus in on, hey, how did she do that grouping tool? Or what was that cut, copy, paste? We'll have individual videos on our website, and we'll send you a link to those as well. Okay, back here in our model, I'm just going to create a member. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just, to keep it simple here, I'll just start a new model, create here. And in this new model, I'm just going to draw a member. So I'm going to draw a engineered floor or beam here, and I'll just use a 9.5 LVL. So for the LVL, I'm going to right click on it and edit that element. And I'm going to add in some purchase member lengths again, just like we did with the columns. So I'm going to tell it that it's available in 12-foot lengths, and the SKU number is whatever, and it's available in each. And I'll add in another one, and this one's 14 feet, and its SKU number is 14, whatever, and keep creating, just lengths that it's going to be available in, and I'll just do an 18-foot piece as well, and this is 18, and then click OK. So I've got some purchase member lengths in here. That's not new, but what is new is if I choose this include cut lengths, what we've done now is help to reorganize all of these in our materials report. So if I grab that LVL now from the catalog and just start drawing pieces, I'll draw a 10-foot length, I'll hit repeat, I'll draw a 13-foot length, I'll hit repeat, I'll draw a 17-foot length, right click, finish. Now if I do a material report and hit generate project estimate, what you'll see now is the SKU number dash tally. So it's tallying up the lengths that I drew, 10, 13, 17, and underneath that, it's giving you the SKU numbers that you need to order. So there's the various SKU numbers that I ordered. So there's my 10, 18, and 12 because those are the ones I'm ordering, but these are the actual lengths. So for those of you, again, that are focused on estimating and using Envisioneer for estimating purposes, great way of getting tallies quickly added into your material report and getting them organized correctly. There's the SKU number, there's the tally up of everything that you need. Great new features for Envisioneer. I've taken you through kind of the gamut of everything that is new in Envisioneer 14. So just to kind of recap for those that were late, we talked about taking a group of elements. We started off in this bedroom and we selected them, various elements here, and then we right-clicked and talked about cut and copy. How I can cut things out of one design and now copy them into another design, or cut and copy them into different parts of that same model or another model. Great way of being able to share work. That has been one of the biggest requests we've had in Envisioneer. So I'm really happy that that's a part of it. Going along with that, we can add them into a group. So not only can we copy them into another model, but we can save them as a group so we can use them over and over again. So you'll notice up here at the very top, there's a new icon called Insert Group, and it's got the various groups that I've been using. So I've got a pergola, I've got a sunroom here, and I'll be able to use those in all of my models. Again, excellent way of being able to accomplish base plus options. It's not just furniture, it's walls, it's roofs, it's ceiling. Like you can see in this sunroom, if I put this down into 2D and grab this sunroom and actually insert it just randomly over in a different spot of my model here. Let me move it over here, insert it here, and hit deselect all. They're all individual pieces, but if I put a camera in here, I'm in that sunroom. And that sunroom has a couch. It has this end table, skylights, a roof, walls, floors, everything. And they're all individual elements that will quantify. Huge, huge new tool. I think just being efficient and the ability to step back may seem trivial, but if you've ever put in a roof by picking points and got into that 18th point and realized you picked one wrong and had to start over again, ouch, now it's a lot easier. You can just step back and repick those points really easy. The ability, and I'll grab into our family room here, to have trim around a window that's not the same trim wrapped all the way around it. Now the top of a window or a top of a door can have different trim. So you can see here on the inside that I've got the trim header above there different. And if I go to that perspective view from the outside here, you can see over top of this garage, it has a stone header above the door, but nothing on the sides. And the other new tool is being able to put a sill with your garage doors. Previously, you couldn't. Going upstairs into our ensuite, I showed you how we could float a cabinet very efficiently now. And when we put in that toilet, the ability when you're inserting an element like that to have that force field around it. So I know I wanted it 10 inches off the wall on the side and 2 inches off the back, and it very precisely went into that for me. The ability to match properties. If I go back down into that kitchen view, the cabinets previously were gray, but using match properties, I updated the entire house to match that island so they all have the same appearance. We also talked about, and if I turn back on the roof framing, gable ladder framing, and not just giving you a fixed length, but we enhanced the tool for version 14 to be able to allow you to go back any set distance that you want to go back. So it gives you a lot of flexibility with that tool now that you've been asking for. We also talked about putting in new truss profiles. So we have now added in the think truss and the flat truss for you to be able to use. And I invite you to think outside the box. not just for roof trusses, but floor trusses as well with this new flat truss. That'll be give you the ability to be able to show those and use them in your model as well. Um, we went inside of the bonus room where I converted the floor that was there into a structural floor. And when we're inserting singular members using the advanced member tool, that it's going to remember that plane. So the plane that I originally inserted was that 812 slope hip roof. You can see again, it's remembered it. It's not going to flush it out. It's going to retain that for me. And then we talked about columns. And with columns, the ability now, if I zoom in there and look at that column, for columns to have purchased items. So when it's ordering, it's going to look at the individual SKU numbers and order you the right length. We also talked about going into the catalog and using the, if I right click in here into the element manager, the trace and replace. So I can find out everywhere that something is being used and replace it very efficiently. We also looked at putting in the floor joist note back here on our floor plan, on our sheet, being able to quickly put in those two annotations. And back in our model, last couple things here. Oh, and there is another tool I completely forgot. If I come in here to our layer properties, we had priority set in version 13. If you're not familiar with priority, it's almost like a front to back. So if I'm putting a bunch of views in and I want something to sit layered in front of something else, we set a priority number. And that priority means I'm going to have it sitting in front or sitting behind. So previously you had to go through one by one and set the priority. But what we can do now is select multiple items and then come in and set that priority. So I can say these are all now 750 and they'll all become 750. So instead of having to individually doing that, especially when you have lots and lots of layers, it took a lot of time. We've made it a little more efficient for you and allowed you to set those priority all at the same time. And last but not least, we also gave you now the ability to use the tally. So if I'm looking at elements here, I've got purchased items, and if I just click include the cut lengths, now in the material list, it'll say dash tally. Lots of new features that we've covered in this hour together, going through everything that's new in version 14. Very efficient tools to allow you to continue on with your models, make them more intelligent, make your work more efficient by being able to save and group things, and just tweaking commands that were already there so that it can be that one step easier to use or that one step more in line of how you would want to use it, like the gable end framing. I hope you like all of the new features of version 14. I'm proud of the programming staff here at CADSoft for being able to pull all of these together for you. Again, we're going to follow up with an email that is going to include links to the videos of each of the individual features that I profiled for you today, and also a link to where you can see this entire webinar again. I want to thank everyone for joining me today to see all of the great new features, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.